All right. We're live. All right. Good afternoon, guys, and God bless you. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode, our third episode of Breaking Chains, which is an extension of the Whole Truth Ministries podcast and network. We're super excited to do another testimony Friday. Talk about the recovering nature of Jesus Christ. We have one of our own here today. His name is Andy. He's been at Whole Truth for a couple years now, or been sober for a couple years now. We're going to get into his story. I'm super thankful that I got to spend some time with the guy this week. I see him pretty much almost every day now. Gentle spirit. Love your story, love your testimony, brother. And I don't want to waste any time, so let's get into it. So, ladies and gentlemen, Andy.
So, my name is Andy Sizemore. Born and raised in Hamilton, Ohio. It's down by Cincinnati. All my grandparents on both sides came from Kentucky, like deep in the hollers of Kentucky. They all had the real strong Kentucky accent. Sometimes you can hear it in my voice. So
You got a Kentucky.
I came from a I came from a family of addicts and alcoholics on both sides. Mom and dad, addicts and alcoholics. My grandparents, addicts and alcoholics for the most part. Um, so like I didn't have to leave the house to see like drugs being used and sold and violence, domestic violence a lot in the household. I'm the oldest of three boys. My mom's name was Sherry. She had me when she was about 17. My dad went to prison when I was about a year old, so I never really remembered like had I never seen my mom and dad together like in a relationship. And my grandparents were divorced by the time I came around. So like I never really knew that like it was a common thing for people to be married and living together until like I got old enough and was going to my friend's house and stuff and I'm like, your dad lives here, dude? Like that's crazy. Um so like I said, I'm the oldest of three boys. Uh, I started getting in trouble at a young age. I remember I was put in severe behavior handicap classes because like there was a lot going on at the house and my mom was very physically abusive. She had a very bad anger problem and I looked just like my dad and she hated my dad. So like whenever I would do something wrong or she's mad or whatever, she'd take it out on me for all the things my dad put her through. So I would go to school and I would lash out. I had a real bad behavior problem. The teachers and principals couldn't control me. And so I would go to school and lash out. And then, like any chance I got, whenever I hit the streets, I was out getting in trouble. At one point in time, I was like the kid that nobody else's parents wanted them to hang out with me. They're like, you're not allowed around him and his brothers. Um, every babysitter my mom had, the babysitters would be like, Sherry, listen, I love you to death, but like I can't watch your kids anymore. Like they've got the police called at my house. They're beating up kids in the neighborhood. They're stealing stuff, just little terrorists, man. You know what I mean? But just misunderstood. I didn't have like a father figure in the house, at a young age. Until my youngest brother's dad came into the picture, and he was a drug addict too, and selling drugs, using drugs, and real violent. And that was like the closest thing I had to a dad. So uh, I remember going to juvenile prison at a young age. I was about 16 for receiving stolen property firearm. I talked one of my friends into stealing his parents' gun and bringing it to me. I tried to go sell it, and I got told on when they found out the gun was missing. They asked the kid where the gun went. He told them that he gave it to me, and then another kid got caught with it. So then both of those kids went and told like who was the mastermind behind it, so to speak. Um, and then when I got out of juvenile prison, I went and stayed with my grandma on High Street, and like it was different at my grandma's because my grandma would let me do anything. I could like smoke weed at her house. I could drink at her
Is
house.
this
I could
still,
have my
is this still
friends.
Kentucky? Is this still
Huh?
Kentucky? Is this still Kentucky?
No, this is Hamilton. Um, yeah, they all moved up here from Kentucky. My grandparents. I was born in Hamilton. They came to Hamilton from Kentucky before I
Gotcha.
was born.
Okay, gotcha.
So I'm living with my grandma, and she would just let me do whatever I wanted to do. I was her firstborn grandchild, and it was like I could do no wrong in her eyes. That woman loved me unconditionally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To the point of enabling a little bit of my behavior. Like whenever something would happen involving me, it's everyone else's fault. She was mad at everybody else but me. I was her pride and joy, man. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
where I really felt unconditional love. I could smoke weed in there. I had my own room. I could smoke weed in there. I could drink in there. I could have all my friends over there. Do about everything but have a girl in my room. She was not cool with that. She'd be like, "Now, Bubby, you're not gonna be laid up in there with that girl now." You know, just trying to look out for
Gotta
me
draw the
more
line.
than
Gotta draw the
more I
line.
realized.
Gotta
Yeah,
draw the line somewhere.
yes, you got to draw the line somewhere. Yeah, so she didn't want me getting somebody pregnant, and I thought she was just hating. You know what I mean? Whatever. But so then a little bit after that, she passed away, and so then when I was about 21, I caught my first aggravated drug trafficking case. Me, my mom, my Aunt Paula, and my grandma. This is right before my grandma passed away. Me, my mom, my aunt, my grandma, all four caught an aggravated drug trafficking case. Some guy had came and bought prescription pain pills off of me, my mom, my aunt, my grandma, and they had us all four in the Butler County Jail. They raided our house. My aunt was like 8 months pregnant with her oldest daughter, Samantha, at the time. And so they let her out on 5 years paper with 7 years on the shelf. And she got her life together. She found God. That was one of the first times that I had somebody really close in my family that I watched be addicted to drugs and then find God and then work and she like we started having our Thanksgivings at her house and like it was an inspiration on me, because I've always been really close to my Aunt Paula. Her and my mom were sisters, but they were more like best friends. So she just was always around, and seeing her get seeing Jesus get a hold of her and her get sober, it really inspired me. It really made me proud of her. Um, and then shortly after that, I went to prison for the drug trafficking. And then when I got out, my middle brother, he had got addicted to drugs really bad while I was in prison. And I got out and then found that out when I got out. So as soon as I got out of prison the first time, he just went on this rampage, just stealing cars, stealing guns, breaking in houses, robbing people. And then him and a friend of his broke in this old woman's house and they beat her with a baseball bat and robbed her. Home invasion, put her in the nursing home like a vegetable. And we weren't raised like that. You know what I mean? Like to be beating up old women and stuff like that. So when they finally arrested him and they put him in jail and he got away from the drugs, it was like playing on his conscience really bad. He called me from jail and told me like, Bub, I can't believe I did this to this woman. You know what I mean? He wrote my mom a letter while she was in prison and told her like he sees the woman walking past his cell, like it was haunting him. And so my mom was in prison at the time, and then one day I got a call that he had took his life in jail a month after he turned 20, you know. And my life took a drastic turn right then and there because I'm his older brother and I always had him out in the streets with me doing stupid stuff, you know what I mean? And just setting a bad example for him. So when he passed away at such a young age with no kids or anything, I felt personally responsible for him being where he was. It was my fault. I should have been the one dead and not him. But, you know, it took a long time for me to realize that like I didn't have a father figure in the house, and the neighborhood and felons and drug addicts and drug dealers was my role model. So I didn't really have a chance being a young impressionable kid.
Right.
But at the time, it was just like devastating to me. It was the most traumatic thing that had happened in my life up to that point. Um, it was like at first, like I refused to accept it. I was like, somebody got their facts mixed up. He's not gone. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't accept it. Um, and after that, like a month after he passed away, my first child was born. My son was born, and I was in no position to be a father. Um, I just was after that. It had always been like I just like to get high. I just like to get drunk. It's just like what people did. It's how we socialize. But when my brother passed away, that's when the drugs started to be more of a coping mechanism to help me get through the trauma. You know what I mean? Like now I'm getting high because I don't want to feel that. For the longest time after that, it was like as soon as I would be thinking about something else, I would see somebody that I hadn't seen since then, and I see the look on their face. They're like, "Dude, I'm so sorry, man. I'm sorry." So now I got to think about it all over again, and it's like I can't be mad at them. They're just trying to show their condolences. You know what I mean? But it's like everywhere I go, I'm reminded of it. So then, yeah, my son was born. I was just off to the races with the alcohol and the drinking and the doing pills. And at this time I started snorting pain pills and shooting coke, hiding it from my girlfriend. I would go in the bathroom and do a shot of coke and then come out, just act like I didn't just do that. She knew, but in my mind I was being sneaky. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So at this time I'm like selling coke to support my habit. So I sold to an undercover again. He had a confidential informant with him, and they came and bought some cocaine off of me, and I went back to prison again. And then when I got out that time, I had moved to Indiana for a short period of time, and then I came back running the streets again, doing drugs, stuff like that. And then I met this other girl. She had just got out of prison. She was in the halfway house. Her name was Jessica. And the first like pass that she got from the halfway house, she came to my house and we slept together. I got her pregnant, and so then she was pregnant with my second child, my youngest son. And we both were on drugs. She was a drug addict before I met her. You know what I mean? And I'm already a drug addict. So like we're just two broken people, you know what I mean? And when she got pregnant, she was on the run for leaving the halfway house. And then when they caught her and she went back to jail and they caught me, we were writing each other, and I told the judge I wanted to go to Sojourners. This was like one of the first times of me trying to get sober. I'm like, all right, I've already messed up with my
How old are
first
you
one.
How old are you about this time period?
I was about 30, 31, 32, something like that.
Gotcha.
Um, so I had already messed up with my first son,
Yeah.
and I had promised myself I wasn't going to be like my dad was to me with my kids, with my boys. My dad wasn't in my life. He was in prison and on drugs and just wasn't a father figure to me. So I promised myself when I was a kid, I'm not going to be like that to my kids. Well, drugs and alcohol got a hold of me, and I was even less in my kids' life than my dad was in mine. So she had the baby. I went to Sojourners. And then she got out of prison, and then her cousin and her cousin's husband adopted my son, my youngest son. They went and got him from Ohio State Hospital when he was 3 years old. They've had him ever since. Um, so when she got out and I got out of Sojourners, we were living in Middletown on Wilbraham, and we were going and seeing him like twice a week at Family Connections on Pleasant Avenue in Hamilton. There's like a place where they let you go visit your kids there. They got a sheriff in there, and we would go see him for a couple hours each time, and then we relapsed. all it took one, everything was going great. And then we're sitting on the couch together one day and she was like, babe, I'm bored. I want to do some drugs. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So now we're like locking the door and pulling the blinds down when the children's services ladies come into the house to drug test us because we're dirty. And so then she calls my phone and leaves a voice message like, you can't go see your son again until you come in and take a drug test. So after that, it was like, well, there went everything we were trying to stay sober for. And this is why they say anything you put before your recovery, you're going to lose anyways. So, like, the whole reason based around me wanting to get sober was to be a father, to be a dad to my kids. So I was doing it for my son and not for because I just generally wanted a better life. So that fell apart as they usually do in those situations. So after that, me and my baby's mom, we got way worse, like off the deep end, on heroin, and it was like that vicious cycle of waking up every day, finding a way to get well. And then eventually I went to jail. We were together for about 4 years. I went to jail. I was doing 6 months in jail. Me and my little youngest brother got arrested on the same day, but at different times. So when we went to jail, my youngest brother was living with my mom. When we went to jail, the next morning, my mom went and checked into an outpatient rehab and got on Suboxones. She told them, like, both my sons just went to jail. I'm addicted to drugs. I want to get off of them. So she gets on Suboxones and is going to classes, and she finds God. She's got Jesus in her life now. So again, it's in my face, somebody close to me. It's like a line is drawn, like you can either die out here in addiction in this lifestyle, or you can get sober and God goes right with that for me. So I'm in jail doing 6 months. My mom gets this crazy idea to just drive her car, left her whole apartment and everything, and just goes west, going to LA, and her tire blew and her GPS quit working on the highway in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So it was just like a coincidence, you know what I mean? And so she gets her tire fixed. She stayed at a homeless shelter for a couple months in Cheyenne, working, gets her own place. Meanwhile, I'm in jail doing 6 months in jail. So I'm on the phone with her, calling her, talking to her all the time. She told me she moved out west. I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, I really want to do something different with my life. You know what I mean? I had this thing where, like, I would go to jail, I'd get a little bit of sobriety, not by my own doing, but I would get a little bit of sobriety. I was rescued, not arrested. A little bit of peace of mind, start getting my weight up a little bit in there, thinking clearly, and I would want to stay sober, but I would get out with no plan and fall on my face every time. So then I'm talking to my mom. She's like, you need to come out here. And I'm like, I can't leave Jessica like that. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't walk away from that. You know what I mean? Well, then about a week and a half before I'm scheduled to be released from jail, they come in, the forensics people come in, and they let me know that my baby's mom was found dead from an overdose. So I go call my mom. She's like, it's true. They just found her this morning. And that broke me down. You know what I mean? Like, I went in my cell, I cried like a baby. And right then and there, I made my mind up, like, there's nothing left for me in Hamilton. I need to get out of here. You know what I mean? So I went and called my mom when I regained my composure. Called my mom. I said, Mom, get me a bus ticket. I want to leave the morning I get out of jail. I don't want to walk anywhere from this jail. So the morning I got out at 5 a.m., my cousin James was there to get me. He gives me a ride to Cincinnati to the Greyhound bus station. I get on the Greyhound bus and we go 36 hours west to Cheyenne, Wyoming. I get a job when I get out there within like a day or two of me getting out there. I got a job. My mom's working. She's going to church out there on the regular. She's a Sunday school teacher. And she would tell me, like, there's no better feeling than seeing these little kids' faces when I teach them about Jesus. You know what I mean? Every day she's reading her Bible in the living room. I'm going to church with her now. I started playing drums at the church. Mainly it was because, like, she was, I knew that's what she wanted. So I wanted to make her proud, because, like, I never had a reason in my life, really. My mom never had an opportunity to say, I'm so proud of you, because I was destroying myself and everyone around me. So she never really had an opportunity to honestly say, I'm proud of you, you know? So for the first time, once she got that opportunity, she said it like to the point where it was awkward. Like, all right, mom, you've done told me you're proud of me like 10 times.
All them decades worth of compliments coming out,
Dude, yeah. And then she's like, all right, thunderstorm of I'm
That's what
proud.
happens
You know what
when
I mean?
Jesus comes in. When Jesus comes in, you start saying things that are so positive about how you start seeing
Yeah.
things. I get it, man. That's great.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's like for the first time since I was born, me and my mom are like, we're both working, we're coming home, we're praying together. Um, we're like planning our day and our week out. We would go to like the park and just enjoy the sun together. We're just enjoying our time together without anybody else around, without any drugs around. And it was just amazing, dude. You know what I mean? It was amazing. I am so grateful to this day that God gave me that time with her, you know? Because I'm her oldest child. She always called me her big baby. You know what I mean? My mom was my biggest fan of like my music and artwork and stuff like that. She had the same number for years. Anytime I went to jail, I could always call her. She'd always put money on my books. She'd always come see me. So then while we're out there, my youngest brother gets out of prison, and my mom's like, I miss my baby. I want to move back home. I'm homesick. I'm like trying to talk her out of it. I'm like, Mom, there's nothing good going to come from going back to Ohio. Like, we made it out of there. We're doing great. You know what I mean? And she's like, I know, but I miss him. I can't give up on him like that. I'm like, I'm not saying give up on him, but like have him get some help. You know what I mean? Because he got out of prison and got right back on fentanyl. You know what I mean? So I couldn't win that war with her. That's her baby. So we moved back to Ohio, up to Gordon Smith on the west side. I'm working. Um, me and her's living together. I told her like I don't want him living here. You know what I mean? He's doing dope. I don't want it in the house. If you want to go see him or whatever, that's on you. I think you're taking. I think it's risky, but I know that's your child, and I'm not going to ask you to stay away from him. I just don't want him around me. So I came home from work one night. I go to sleep. I wake up in the middle of the night and I see her feet and her legs like in the kitchen on the floor. I'm like, so I go in there and she's on the floor and she's like blue. So I'm like trying to wake her up. She's not moving. I call the ambulance. I call 911. They're like, give her CPR till we get there. I'm blowing in her mouth, pumping on her chest, trying to revive her. And I can hear the ambulance outside. I come let them in. They're like, we need you to go out in the hallway right now. And they're like in there trying to bring her back. And then they come out the hallway and they're like, she's expired, man. She's gone. Like, there's nothing we can do. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you know, this is what I do when somebody close to me passes away. I feel like somehow they're mistaken. I'm like holding on to this slim chance that maybe they're wrong. You know, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, here, let me go. And they're like, man, it's over. You know what I mean? So that like I thought my brother was that was the biggest thing that happened to me since my brother. That was like a complete shift in my life right there. You know what I mean? My my mom's all I know, dude. She taught me everything I
That's
know.
heavy, man.
Um, she raised me by herself without my dad. You know what I mean? Like everything I learned was from my mother. You know what I mean? Um, just we were just really close because like she had me so young. It's like we grew up together. You know what I mean? I was more like her younger brother almost. You know what I mean? Like we were that close. And then now she's gone. Like, and I just couldn't accept that. So I stayed in that apartment for a couple months after that, just obliterated. Like every time I came to, I would go get some more drugs and I'd be out. I stayed there until they evicted me. And then from there, I went and stole a tent from Walmart. And I was living up behind Myers on the west side in a tent. That's how bad life had got for me. I was at the lowest, worst point in my life. Um, and then like right at the end of summer into the fall, like this was like October, in October. I'm in this tent, dude, and it's like 8 in the morning, and I hear somebody outside like, "Hey, this is the city of Hamilton. You got 2 minutes to grab whatever you want. And we're tearing all this down, and throwing it in a dump truck." So like I grabbed some little clothes and stuff, and like hopped on a bike and went and rode in front of Myers. And I'm sitting there. I remember I was sitting there, and it's like 8:30 in the morning, and I'm sitting in front of Myers, just miserable. You know what I mean? Like in this space where like I don't want to kill myself because I don't know what comes after that, but I don't want to go on living like this. So it's either I want to die or something has to change, you know. And then it's, right after that I'm staying at this house. This girl would let me like sleep in her living room on her chair over on Webster. And I'm there for like a week or two, and then a friend of mine had got sober, friend of mine named Ashley, and she reached out to me one day and she was like, "Hey, how you doing, bub?" And I'm like, "Not good, not gonna lie to you, not good." And she was like, "Well, I just wanted you to know, like, I showed the video that you made of your music. I showed it to my niece, and she was like, 'Oh my gosh, he's so talented. Like, what's he doing now?'" And she was like, "I had to tell her that you were back out there." And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Man, I wish you would just get sober. You deserve it. Like you're talented, you're smart, you're a great person." She was like, I really want you to get sober." And I was like, I'd like to get sober. You know what I mean? Like I just can't here. And she was like, "Dude, if you give me your phone number and the address you're at right now, I will have a friend of mine be there in the morning to get you." I'm like, "All right." So I give her the address where I'm at, phone number. And 8 a.m. the next morning, this chick that I don't even know, never met her and haven't seen her since, she texts my phone like, "Hey, I'm outside." So I grab what little clothes I could. I hop in the car. We go from the west side of Hamilton to Dayton, Ohio, to a place called Access. Um, I go there. I'm there for like 32 days. Now, rewind a little bit. When I was in Wyoming, I was like drinking. I wasn't doing any hard drugs, but I was drinking and smoking weed. And a friend of mine named Bobby, um, he went through a program called Full Circle. So like I would send him videos of me doing music or whatever, and I'd be like drunk, visibly drunk. And he like had to set a boundary with me, like, "Hey, bro, look, I love you to death, but could you please not send me videos or call me like when you're drinking or smoking weed or anything? Like, I'm sober and I'm trying to live a different lifestyle." I'm like, "All right." So then I go to Access and I hear some people in there talking about Full Circle, and I remembered that program because that's what Bobby went to. So I'm like, "Man, like I'm interested." And I started asking people about it, and they're telling me about it. So I leave Access, I go into Full Circle up to this place called Bluffton for 28 days, 4 weeks there. After Bluffton, I go to uh, Fairborn Full Circle. While I'm at Fairborn, a friend of mine, she's doing like sober karaoke at this place called New Hope Church, right? I see her on Facebook doing sober karaoke, and I like to sing. So I'm like, "Where are you doing that at?" She's like, "It's at this place called New Hope Church. It's every Saturday. It's at this Overcomers thing. You need to come check it out." I'm like, "Bet." So I go there, and I come there to just do the sober karaoke. And while I'm there, this guy named Donnie walks through, and he's like, "Hey guys, we're getting ready to have this meeting over in the sanctuary. You guys should come check it out." I'm like, "All right, cool." So I walk through there around to the sanctuary. As soon as I get around the sanctuary, I hear them playing on the speakers. "Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down." And my
Yeah.
mom used to sing that song all the time,
It drew
right
you
up
in,
close to
maybe.
that. Cold chills, hair standing up on my arms. Instantly, I'm like, I feel my mother in here. I feel God in here. I'm like, and I don't believe in accidents, coincidences. You know what I mean? I'm like, "Okay, Lord, I hear you. I'm right where I need to be." You know what I mean? So I go sit down in the front row, and Donnie is like up there running the meeting. He's like sharing on the microphone, and he's giving his lead. He's telling about himself and like where he came from, like selling drugs and going to prison and messing around in the streets and all that. And like I got all that down. I got his past down. But like the guy standing in front of me today, there's just the way he presented himself, and he's constantly talking about God, constantly, Jesus Christ, constantly. And I'm like, that's what I'm missing. That's what I need. You know what I mean? I've tried to get sober over and over and over again. The missing ingredient was Jesus, bro. You know what I'm saying? And
I'm about to take off sprinting.
so after the meeting, I walk right up on him, I introduce myself. Hey, buddy. He's like, what's going on, man? I'm like, my name's Andy. He's like, my name's Donnie. I'm like, dude, do you sponsor guys? And he was like, yeah. I was like, man, is there any way you could sponsor me, bro? I've never had a sponsor before in my life. You know what I mean? He was like, hey, just keep coming back to the meetings, man. We'll talk about it. I'm like, all right. So I keep coming back to the meetings. A couple weeks go by. He ain't said nothing else to me. After the meeting, I'm going right down there to sober karaoke though, and singing. You know what I mean? So um, after a couple weeks, I'm like, man, maybe he forgot. Man, maybe I should ask him again. So after the meeting one day, I asked him again. I'm like, did you put any thought into sponsoring me? And he was like, so after the meeting, when you go down there to sober karaoke, we do step work in a coffee bar, and you're more than welcome to join us. I'm like, bet I can sing anytime. The step work though is what I need.
Right.
To just be around somebody to show me how to, how to go through the steps, how to live sober. So me and him ended up just hitting it off, man, becoming good friends. He's still my sponsor to this day. Selfless dude, man. He
How
works in
long was
recovery.
that? A couple years ago, right? A couple years ago.
Yeah, I've been sober 3.5 years now. It'll be 4 years, November 10th of this year.
In 3.5 years started at Access, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so
November 10th of 2022 is the day I went to Access. And
what was the
I
day that
haven't
you?
touched a Suboxone, beer, joint, drug, nothing since then.
Amen.
Absolutely nothing but coffee and cigarettes, but that's the next thing to go.
Yeah.
but yeah. So I start hanging out with him, going to these meetings, and then he's like, dude, you should come to this church on Sunday, New Hope Church. I'm going to introduce you to this guy, Pastor Jeff. You need to meet him. I'm like, all right, cool. So then I come to church the next Sunday, you know what I mean? And it's this church, man, New Hope Church. It's a place where a lot of people in recovery go and worship and praise Jesus
Yeah.
together. You know what I'm saying? And he introduced me to Pastor Jeff. And now Pastor Jeff is another one of those people, dude, that is monumental in my recovery. You know what I mean? This is an amazing, selfless man that his sole purpose in this world is to lead people to Jesus, and he wants you to know it. You know what I mean? And to get people around him to go spread the word too. You know, so now I've been going to this church ever since, dude. I go every Sunday. Anytime they ask me to do something, I do it. I do the offering prayer up there. Just this past Good Friday, I played Jesus up on the stage. And it blows my mind. Like, not so long ago, I was a homeless, convicted felon, drug addict, covered in tattoos. Nobody could trust me to be in their house or whatever. Now I got the keys to this church, the alarm code. I run a meeting in there on Friday nights, and I'm up on stage playing Jesus, bro. Like, you can't tell me that God won't turn things around. All you got to do is let him, bro. All you got to do is be willing. You know what I mean?
Look
God
what
can
the
fix
Lord has done.
whatever. As long as you got breath in your lungs and a willingness in your heart, God can fix it. I promise. You know what I mean? And so now, like, I go give my lead at places like treatment facilities, and I work in recovery. So I'm in groups sharing in there, and I'm constantly talking about the things I've been through, those things that are hard to talk about for a lot of people. They're not hard to talk about for me no more, like dealing with all these deaths in my family and all that, because I know that somebody else is struggling with that, and they feel like they're the only person in this world that's going through it. And so I've taken all my pain and things I've went through, and I've turned it into a message to help somebody else out. And I don't get paid money to go in those places and do that, but I get paid spiritually. You know what I mean? God puts a gratitude on my heart that no drugs or alcohol could ever. You know what I mean? And like that's the best feeling in the world to watch the lights come back on in somebody and to let them feel like they're not alone in this world and there's people that's been through what you've been through and they're getting through it and I can show you the way. I know a man and his name is Jesus. You know what I
Amen.
mean? And my God's got deep pockets, man. So like anything I'm going through in life, when I feel overwhelmed, when something bad happens, I run straight to God. That's my go-to. It's not the drugs and alcohol. I run straight to God and I give it to Him, and He holds it in His deep pockets for me, and He gives it to me a little at a time as I can handle it. Um, and it's like when I was out there in the streets and I would get some good drugs and I'd find the fire. I'm like, dude, I got the plug. I'm trying to tell everybody about. I got my dude's got the fire. So I've taken that same mentality, and now that I'm in church and I found God, I know the plug. You know what I mean? Like my dude's got the fire. You know what I mean? And like every chance I get, I'm telling people about it. And
Yeah.
like it's for me. There's no other way. And I'm not saying that like you can't stay sober without it, but it's just like, dude, God changes things, man. You know what I mean? Being in the church, being around, I've met so many amazing, great people. And also, when I first went to Access, dude, and I was doing my paperwork, they're like asking me, like, we need an emergency contact number. I'm like, put 911. Like, I ain't got nobody, you know what I
Right.
mean? Everybody's dead. Put 911, bro. And they're like, be serious, man. We can't put 911 as your emergency contact. I'm like, well, put God then. Pray for me. I don't even have somebody to come get my urn when I get cremated. You know what I mean? So, when I was in Access and they would bring people in from the outside to speak, to do what I do now, people would come in and they would tell me about their past and then explain to me where they're at now. And, it seemed like such an impossible process, but I got that glimmer of hope. You know what I mean? And I would speak up at these. I talked to them at the end of it. I'm like, dude, I don't have no family, man. Not for real. I got like my Aunt Paula still and like some people back home, but I don't really have anybody. I'm up here away from home. I'm alone. And they're like, you're gonna build a new family in recovery. You're gonna have brothers and sisters in recovery. And I took that personally. And I took that and I ran with it, dude. And now today, like I know so many people and I'm like family with so many people. When I call my people up here, my brothers and sisters, like I take that serious. You know what I mean? I got a church family. Dude, I walk in, it takes me 10 minutes to get to my seat from all the hugs people's giving me at church. You know what I
That's
mean?
definitely a
All
benefit.
the people.
You
And
get
it's just an amazing feeling for somebody that's been isolated and been alone and you know what I mean? And at their worst and in a dark place for so long. And now I just can't. I look for. I can't wait till Sunday so I can go in there and see them again and give everybody a hug. And
yeah.
now I'm at the church on Wednesday nights with prayer worship, the worship practice. I'm there on Friday nights. That place is a staple of my recovery. I'm there every chance I get. I'll pull up there for no reason. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, pull up because 44 years old, and for the first time in my life, I just got my license and insurance in January, and then got a car through the place I'm at now. I'm at Whole Truth Ministries now. I mean, and these dudes have helped me so much, man. Like just good people, men of God. You know what I mean? And we
I
say it
love
all the time. Iron
it.
sharpens iron. We're just constantly pushing each other to do better. Uh, my oldest son that I talked about earlier, for the first time in 15 years, man, just a couple weeks ago, I got to go pick my son up and go take him out to eat in my car. You know what I mean? And it was, dude, this was stuff I would lay awake in jail and prison and trap houses, stuff I could only fantasize and dream about. And I'm
Well,
living in the promises today.
amen.
Literally, of if you just keep your faith in God, you keep your eyes on Him, and you do the next best thing, and get up off your butt and go to work, stuff is going to happen for you. You know what I mean? Stuff that I could only daydream about before and only fantasize about before. It never comes into fruition until you put in the work behind it and you stay consistent. You know what I mean? And I had to learn that. You know, it took a long time for me to learn that, for me to stay consistent. My patience levels are higher than they've ever been. My acceptance My level of acceptance is higher than it's ever been. I just keep it in my mind that no matter what happens in my life, getting high and getting drunk cannot be the answer. Giving up cannot be the answer. I got this saying that my sponsor told me a long time ago: God, whether the answer is yes or whether the answer is no, thank you. You know what I mean? I don't question his plans. If something didn't happen, for some reason, he didn't think it was necessary for it to happen. And I'm okay with it either way. You know what I mean? I'm living in his will, not mine. You know what I mean? My youngest son, the one that his mother passed away. So the week after I went and got my oldest son and took him out to eat and seen him again for the first time, then now the people that have custody of my youngest son are just finally like opening up a line of communication with me. He just turned 10 March 23rd. So I went and got him the biggest Minecraft Lego set that they had in Walmart, took it down there to the guy that has custody of him. I sat in the parking lot at the place where the guy works at for like 30 minutes and had a really good conversation with him. He was like, I knew you had said you got sober, and I didn't know where you were at in life really, but seeing you now, seeing you today, just the way you talk, dude, just like you're completely different. And he said that they had the conversation with my son that he was adopted and they had to tell him about his mom. And he's like, I just want you to know you keep living the way you're living now, dude. And the time is going to come where we're going to feel like it's necessary and we want you to be in his life again. And I told this man, I said, I just want you to know that I don't hold any kind of hard feelings or resentments or anything. You guys were an absolute blessing to my child. You stepped in and you gave my son a life that I never could because of drugs and alcohol. Because of them, my son never had to go through any of the things in life I've went through. He's never seen me on drugs. You know what I mean? Like all he's going to know is the man I am today. You know what I mean? And so I'm just so happy and grateful, dude, of where I'm at today in my life, like working in recovery and the people I have around me today. And it's like no one person that I can name. It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a village to save an addict. You know what I mean? So
Is that older son the same son from Hamilton when you guys was trying to white knuckle?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and it's interesting how you did it in your mind the way you thought you should do it in Hamilton, where you
yeah.
just let's just stay, let's try to get him back in. The goal was get him back in the house, but now you're like acknowledging you did it the right way. Now he's back in your life because you put God first. And man, let me just say this. I teared up because like, I don't know. I don't have kids. I think it would be incredibly difficult to say what you said to a man who's raised your kid and say,
Yeah.
brother, because most of the time you hear it kind of like that type of thing where it's like, man, give me my kid back. I want to see it's kind of like, it's messy-ish.
And they're mad at him, like they won't even let me see my
Yeah,
kid.
they're mad. I'm like,
That goes to the saying that this reminds me of that. If I'm not the problem, there can be no solution. So mad at everybody else for your situation, but the one that caused it. You know what I mean? Looking at it's a mindset thing. Like if I would have never destroyed my life on drugs and then got some girl pregnant when I was in no situation to be a father, and these people had to go out of their way to step in and raise a child that they didn't have to. You know what I mean? If I hadn't created that situation, I would have been in his life from day one. You know what I mean? But like I was in no situation to do that, and they have taken my kid out of Hamilton. He doesn't know anything about drugs and alcohol. Like he's had a great life growing up. He loves his dog. Everywhere he goes, his dog's with him. Every picture I
How old is
see
he?
him in, his dog's right next to him.
How old is he?
Huh?
How old
He's
is your son?
10. His name's Aiden.
Cool. Cool.
My
Bro,
oldest son's
congratulations,
19. His
man.
name's Ethan. Huh?
The promises of God are always true. They're true in every person's life and every situations. And a lot of A is like sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Yeah, sometimes God is got to teach you something, so it takes a little bit longer. And sometimes there's a submission issue, and maybe you just don't have the knowledge of like what it should be like. Like, go back to the beginning where you were talking about how your mom and dad didn't even, you thought it was cool that someone, you're like, why is your dad here? He's like looking in the fridge, and it's like, I think that you have every reason, and I want to say this lightly. You had every reason to throw the towel in.
Oh yeah.
You had there. I mean, probably in your
So
mid-20s, but I'm saying it is astonishing to me how the Lord, I mean, brother, you heard Wes's, Wes pretty good. Every story is going to have the same connotation. The devil, you said something that was so,
and also
hey,
I have
before,
overdosed. I've overdosed so many times, dude. I've overdosed probably 14, 15 times. And usually somebody was there to revive me, but there's been a couple times where I've woke up like on the floor on my face. And like so many people in my life that I know has died from a drug overdose. And that very easily could have been me, man. But God had other plans for me. You know what I
God had
mean?
other plans.
And it's like, how many times am I going to keep playing with that blessing of my life back? Okay, you got another shot. What are you going to do with it? The ball's in your court. You going to shoot or dribble? You know what I mean? And we're not promised. Our days on this earth are not promised. I don't know what the future holds for me. Eventually, at some point, I'm going to go home to be with the Lord. So, how much time I have left on earth is uncertain. I don't know. What I do know is every day that I have left on this earth, I'm going to be sober and I'm going to be helping somebody find God and I'm going to be helping somebody get through what they've been through. I'm going to spend the rest of my life pulling people out of that, helping people out of that, because
Amen.
that's the purpose that God has given me. That is the other thing, the missing ingredient. I never had a purpose, dude. I've questioned it for decades. Like, why am I even alive, bro? I have no purpose. I'm not a dad to my kids. A lot of people find purpose in being a parent. I didn't have that for decades, bro. I was a convicted felon drug addict. You know what I mean? And I had no purpose. And finally, God gave me a purpose to take what I've been through and use it as a message and help other people get through this thing called addiction and just being lost out here in this world to bring people closer to him. You know what I mean? And to show his love through me by helping people. You know what I mean? And it shows in the work I do at work, people coming fresh out off the streets and battling addiction. I go the extra mile. I'm in group talking. You know what I mean? It shows in my work. I have a passion for helping people, man. You know what I mean? I'm the oldest of three boys, so I grew up taking care of my little brothers, helping, making sure, I've just always been a helper, you know what I mean? And a people pleaser. And I still am that, and I always wanted to fit in, and I still am that. I've just changed the people that I'm trying to please, and I still like to fit in. I just changed the people that I want to fit in with, people that fit my future and not my past, you know? So it's like I didn't have to like throw away all the old characteristics of me, only the ones that didn't serve a better purpose. But those characteristics, like being a people pleaser and being, somebody that likes to fit in, got to be accepted, I still got all those. I just changed the people, just tweaked it a little bit. You know what I mean? And that's okay. I could still be a people pleaser. I'm just the people I'm trying to please is different today.
Amen.
The people I want to fit in with today are different.
What would you say? What would you say is your favorite part about Whole Truth Ministries as part of your recovery? What's your
My favorite part about Whole Truth is that we're like a brotherhood here. Uh, the guy that runs Whole Truth, a guy named Kyle Shaw, he was in addiction. He's been to jail and prison himself. I don't want to tell too much of his story, but he gets us. He's one of us. And he started this ministries up. And he said this before, like in recovery, people could get caught up in the insurance side of things, the money side of things, billing people's insurance and, move them in, move them out. But here at Whole Truth Ministries, they're more concerned on saving your soul. So it's not just about getting a guy in group and doing one-on-ones with a guy and all that stuff. They're trying to build you up and help you become a man to stand on your own 2 feet and be a productive member of society and fill your cup so you can pour into other people. You know what I mean? All while infusing all of that with Jesus Christ. We're big on the Bible around here. We're big on the word around here. You know what I mean? So that prison mentality stuff and that street mentality stuff, you can shed that at the door, bub, because we don't do that here. You know what I mean? We trust each other here. We can depend on each other here. We lean on each other here. One of our mottos here is iron sharpens iron. You know what I mean? So these dudes are my family. You know what I mean? I would go to bat. I'd go to war for any one of these dudes. You know what I mean? Um, it's amazing. Like, I've never had my license in my life, and I got my license and my insurance, and I got off work one day and I come over here and Kyle's like, "Oh, you got your insurance?" He makes sure the insurance is legit, hands me the keys. He's like, "Just make payments on it when you can, you're good." Like, I've never had somebody just bless me like that, dude. And he didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? He did that because he's a solid
Discipleship.
dude, man. And
It's
he wants to see you win. You know what I mean? But
amen.
also, he's got this thing about him where he ain't going to put up with no bull crap either. And that's very needed. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? He'll call you on your mess immediately, and if you have a problem with that, that's your own thing. Being a problem being held accountable. You know what I'm saying? That's another thing about me. Like, I could be held accountable today, and I don't take it as a personal insult or a threat or personal attack on me. Tell me about me when I'm slipping or I'm not doing right. I'm not living up to my full potential, and I'm going to take what you said and put it to use. You know what I mean? I'm going to take it in and process that instead of like being defensive and being upset about it. Some people don't know how to take accountability, man. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I mean, it's not an easy thing. It's not always comfortable to be told about yourself, but it's necessary though if you really want to grow. You know,
yeah.
other people can see things about me I might not be able to see. If I got something wrote on my forehead and I can't see it, and you can tell me about it, please, so I can wipe it off there. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
What would you and we'll wrap up here. What would you tell, a new what would you, now that you're where you're at, what would you tell somebody who perhaps is struggling with drug abuse, who's never really not ever tried to get sober, and this is how you run it. What are you telling somebody, that is willing to listen to, what are you preaching at them? And they've never got sober, and maybe they want to,
Hey, listen, the thing that's popping in my mind, and I hate to sound cliche, but dude, I promise you, if I can do it, you can do it.
yeah,
Like, I literally came up here
yeah,
with nothing but a armful of clothes, dude. And
yeah,
and I just have found God, and I'll go to work, no matter what the situation. I'm not putting drugs and alcohol in my body. This is very possible. This is
yeah,
somebody that used to think that I would never be anything, and I would never be able to function without getting high.
yeah.
And I've just changed all that. God changed all that.
God had other
I
plans.
allow God to change all that. So it is possible, man. If I can do it, you can do it. And that's a promise.
Cool. All right, guys. I mean, I could talk to you for hours, Andy. There's I think a huge part of discipleship is rolling with people. I brought that up at the Bible study last night, is that, Peter, John, James, Luke, Judah, everybody was different personality wise, but they were all rolling together. And some were hot shots, some were quiet, some had high IQs, some were worker bees, and they all worked and rolled together for the commonality, the common goal of rolling with Jesus. And and that's preaching the gospel. So that's why I feel like we're in training mode. We're recapping our story. We're giving thanks to Jesus, and now we're going to go tell other people, and then we're doing it together at the same time. And like, in my mind, that is the most beautiful thing, and it's permanent. There's no days off. You know, there's no overtime either, though. So it's just live your life. Brother, you said something so cool, and I'm gonna end with this. You said, because I was how to title the episode, and you said God gave the devil a monumental L in your life.
For sure.
He
With
delivered
me.
that on a big old
because he was at one point he was winning in my life.
It was close.
And God came back in the fourth quarter and gave him a monumental L.
all of you bright in sobriety and salvation, man. I am so proud of you, bro. Like, honestly, I'm excited. There's much to celebrate. If you're watching this, give us a like, a share, a follow. We're gonna do this every 2 weeks. We'll be moving into a studio in the next soonish. So we'll have more of a, this is professional, but we'll have more of a studio vibe. I'm super excited for the next episode of Breaking Chains. Everybody, this is Andy Sizemore. You guys have a blessed weekend, and we will see you next time. We're out.
All right.